Angel in the house.
Angel in the house, yes. What's up, everyone? Welcome to My Angelic Life. I have a very special guest today, and we will be discussing the old felony murder law, which I was convicted on, SB 1437, which is the new felony murder law, and the California Slate Act, I believe it's SB 731, which is the expungement law that just passed. And then we're going to talk a little bit, just how a client, became a friend. And
a dear friend.
A dear friend and family. So Kellin, welcome Kellin Cooper. He is an amazing attorney. He is the best attorney if you ask me my personal opinion. And so Kellin, welcome to My Angelic Life.
So happy to be here.
Yes.
It's so good to see you.
Yes, it's always great to see you. Let's just get into, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got into law and whatnot.
Great, thank you. Well, it all started quite a long time ago. I am the youngest sibling, and I had an older brother that went to law school first, and we are a product of my aunt. Her name is Kellin Cooper, and she's actually quite famous in the criminal defense world. She started our practice and cultivated and developed a criminal law practice for many, many years. And then my brother was fortunate to get out of law school and go immediately work for her. I took a little bit of a different path. Mm-hmm. Which I frankly think my path was better than my brother's. But I went to the Solano County Public Defender Office for the first 5 years of my career, which I thought was great. I mean, to go straight out of law school into private practice, you don't really get dropped into an incredibly intensive criminal defense practice like you can at a public defender office. So I spent 5 years in Solano County, 2 years in Fairfield, and then 2 years in Vallejo. And then this was in 1995, and then in 2000, my aunt was getting close to retirement. She had been doing it for almost 40 years. At that time, my brother had been doing it for 10 years as a criminal defense lawyer in private practice. And I had the good fortune of them saying, come join us. So I left, but I actually left begrudgingly because I really, really liked the Solano County Public Defender Office. I loved my colleagues there, loved my boss there. And that's it. So I left and went into private practice. And I've now been doing private practice for 25 years. 25
years, that's my whole life.
And I'm only 36, it's weird.
I know, right?
I guess I'm not 36.
Yeah.
Damn.
Amazing. Thank you for giving us a little bit of background about yourself. So if you remember, how did we meet, and how did you get to be able to represent me?
I think what happened is that I got a phone call from a lawyer in Oakland. His name is Paul Wolf, who was a very good friend of my aunt. My aunt, I don't know if I mentioned her name is Kellin Cooper. I don't know if I mentioned my brother's name is Kellin Cooper. But Paul Wolf was a longtime friend of my aunt's, fellow criminal defense lawyer. And I think he got a call about your dad. And then Paul said, well, I maybe have a lawyer for your daughter, Angel. And that's how it got started. And lucky me.
Lucky me. Yeah, the Cooper brothers are, if you don't know, the Cooper brothers are very well known in the Bay Area. They're like the top attorneys. So definitely, if you have a case, definitely, hit up Kellin and make sure you say that Angel sent you. So let's talk a little bit about just when you first got the case, besides obviously that this is a business for you, that, this is part of your business, you take on clients. Was there anything that, stuck out about my case or made you want to take it?
Well, the phone call essentially said, we want to talk to you about possibly representing a young lady in a murder case, which is always interesting because you don't see that very often. And so the answer was, of course, I'd be interested. And then I just remember the first time meeting you, and it was like, oh my God. She's really young and totally together. and articulate and smart, and I knew that you were in college down in Southern California, and I don't know if I knew much of what you were being accused of factually, but that was it. I remember our first meeting, and I generally like all my clients, but there was something about you that it was like, oh my God, I need to somehow take care of this person and fix her problem that she's facing, whether she deserved to face it or not. Yeah. So that was my first memory of you. Yeah.
So I guess to just go back, my first memory of you was, I do remember, having a public defender that came up to see me. He was like, he had bags under his eyes. He looked like he was half asleep, and I was like, oh God. And then I remember meeting you, and it was just a completely different vibe. You were trying to just, get to know me personally too. It seemed like you just cared, and you weren't just like, what's the case? Let's go through the things. And it just seemed like you really cared, and obviously you did, because we're still here, and you stuck through with me. So let's get a little bit into the first court hearing in the bail motion.
Well, that was the initial first court date. And at that point, I had seen most of all of the police reports. I knew what the accusation was, and I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, why are they charging her with murder? And I don't remember exactly what the bail amount was, or maybe you were being held on no bail, but we were going to argue to the judge that you should be released. And I'm thinking and even though the standard at a bail hearing is really, really low, the judge is supposed to assume that the facts are true for purposes of supporting what's being charged here. It was first-degree murder. And I'm like, but this should be an exception. There are no facts here that justify the district attorney's office filing a first-degree murder charge against you. And we litigated the bail motion, and we lost. And it was like, okay, well, here we go. We're about to start on the biggest legal battle, ever. And it just, it was the initial blow was a big deal, because you didn't deserve to be in custody. Yeah. And it's then how fast can you actually litigate and get justice for you? Yeah. And to make a long story short, it took about 10 years. But you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put the work in.
Yeah.
I remember that motion and that actual court hearing, because my whole family, and there was like hundreds of character reference letters. The courtroom was packed, and it was just like, and that was like the very first blow of everything that happened. Yeah. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So we went through all the court process. You had prelim, and then you went to trial. And trial was a lot, right? Trial was very heavy, all around. You could feel it in the courtroom, and it was just a very, wild case. Can you explain, what the old felony murder law was that I was convicted on? Because a lot of people couldn't really understand what the law really was. I can do that.
Going back real quick to the trial, the trial, I think generally the trial, and we'll talk about the law, went really well to the extent that I think it really revealed what little role you had in all of this. Mm-hmm. And it was difficult, because on the one hand, we were trying to educate the jury that you didn't even know what was going on. You were duped by one of your co-defendants. On the other hand, it was difficult because we are in a trial where someone had died who didn't deserve to die. And you, from day one, had always expressed your concern and remorse, and yet we couldn't publicly really say anything because you were facing a trial. So it was a very difficult position to be in. But you were being charged under a theory called felony murder, that now the law has changed. But the old law in California, there are certain enumerated serious felonies that if you are linked up with other people that are committing one of these enumerated serious felonies, and the other people that you're linked up with, end up, as a result of that felony, killing somebody, even though you didn't even want it to happen, you didn't know it was going to happen, you may not even have known that one of your fellow cohorts had a weapon, and yet they end up killing someone, you're responsible for first-degree murder. That's the old felony murder law, and that's ultimately what a jury convicted you of, which frankly, and again, I've now been doing it for 30 years, I respectfully disagree with the jury verdict. There was no evidence even close to suggesting you knew anything about what was going to happen, other than that you were going to drive someone that wanted to go buy marijuana.
Yeah.
So, it was a tragedy. The trial was a tragedy.
Yeah.
And a tragedy for the victim, who didn't deserve that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, because they are the victim. So, yeah.
And it was hard seeing their family there every day. And, we had to fight for what was right for you, and yet you turn around and they're in the audience. It was a very difficult position to be in.
It is. It's like,
yeah,
it was just so crazy, because it's like, no, you have to be respectful to the family, because they're grieving, someone's life that was taken from them, senselessly, unjustified, all of that. And then, but at the same time, it's like, I'm living in my truth and in my innocence.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
it was really, really tricky. It just felt really. It was a lot, in court. So we went to trial and we lost. And as I mentioned, like in my last video, that if I remember correctly, that we wanted to read the jury the differences between felony murder and accessory after the fact, and the judge decided that he would let us read the jury those instructions if both sides agreed, and the DA did, of course, fine, and we were unable to read that to the jury.
I can explain a little bit about that, why the judge ruled that way, which was a difficult ruling to accept, because again, I think the evidence overwhelmingly showed that that's what the jury should have decided, is whether or not you were an accessory after the fact. In other words, you don't know anything that's going to go on. You didn't plan it. You didn't encourage it. You didn't want it. Yet then this killing happens, and then are you responsible for doing something afterwards, which is the person comes after he had done what he did, and you drive him away, and whether you were forced to drive him away, that's a whole nother story. And we did. That was appropriate, that a jury should have decided whether or not you were responsible for being an accessory after the fact. And the problem legally is that to get a jury instruction that would allow the jury to consider that as a possible offense, if it's what's called a lesser included, meaning that it's a little bit less than what you're being charged with, but it's included in that charge, but a lesser level, you get it. If it's what's called a lesser related, it's not included in the heavier charge, which is the murder, but it's kind of related. You don't get it unless both sides agree. And the district attorney, I think incredibly unfairly, because I think she knew that that was appropriate for a jury to consider, and whether or not she thought this was a game, it's about winning or losing, or about justice, she chose not to agree. And I don't think that's justice. You deserved the jury to consider that easily.
Just so they could at least,
Absolutely.
understand the differences, because it's a huge difference
Yeah.
between accessory after the fact and
Absolutely.
premeditated murder, going in knowing,
Absolutely.
and after the fact.
Sure, one of the many unfair things that, and I'll just say, I think our criminal justice system is phenomenal. It's not perfect. Your case was a sign of the imperfection.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I've seen too many imperfections in my 30 years. This was an imperfection.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of people that have gone through imperfections that aren't sitting here right now with their freedom.
Yeah.
And thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah, but you deserve it.
Thank you, Kellin. Not to bring back the old memories, but you said that you've been in the practice for many years, and I'm pretty sure that you've lost a trial before.
What?
I mean,
Shit.
maybe
Okay.
maybe one within
Okay.
the 30 years, right?
Yeah.
But this trial had an effect on you, career-wise and personally. How did you feel, when you lost this trial, and why did this have such an impact on your career and personal life?
Well, I wish I could say I'd never lost a trial other than yours, but I have lost some. But the truth is that I have been fortunate to win most because my clients deserved it. And this one, you deserved to win the jury verdict, and you didn't. And unlike any other case that I've lost, it absolutely devastated me. I usually can rebound fairly quickly, and I couldn't. In this case, I could not. And I, in private practice, I do probably 2 or 3 trials a year. And after your case, I didn't do a trial for 3 years. It ruined me that someone got a life sentence that didn't deserve it, and more than that, I mean, you became my friend. I mean, I hugged you probably every time I saw you come out from the back in your jail garb. I hugged your mom and your dad, who's probably not a hugger.
He's not.
And I made him hug me.
Yeah.
When I saw them every day, they'd come to court in support for you. Yeah. You had a lot of family, I hug everyone because you deserved it. Yeah. And I cared about you guys. Yeah, so it devastated me. And my brother Collin, he would try to, say, we're in a tough business, a tough career, and you got to get up. There are other people that deserve your attention. And, and it was hard to do. And eventually it resonated. And I said, okay, I'll get back to work. Yeah. And so, but it took a long time to do it. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, it is. It's business, but it's different,
Yeah.
It was different for you.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't just go through it. You went through it. We were like together.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
went through this together.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say you never really know if you're going to win a trial. Weird things can happen. And when we got the phone call that there was a verdict, I thought we won. Yeah. I thought we won. I mean, because you deserved it. Yeah. And to hear the words that, no, you didn't win, and Angel's going to go away for life, it just, it was the low moment easily of my career.
Yeah. And I remember us sitting there.
Yeah.
And I was wailing. I think it was in the paper, screaming, like they got it wrong, and I was crying, and then saw my family behind me, and they're just like stuck. And then I remember you sitting there, and you're just like looking like in shock.
I was
all in shock.
I was looking at the clerk who read it. I said, well, you forgot the word not. Not guilty. Right. Where's the not?
Right.
Because I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I mean, anyhow.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it's appropriate to say or not. I think that jury can say what they want to say. I think they convicted you on what was the video evidence, which is a year after the incident or longer, where you were being recorded with a video visit with the person that did the shooting. And I think they didn't like that you were still communicating with that person, which I understand completely.
Absolutely.
I also think that, you were only 20 at the time. You've grown up a lot since then.
Yeah.
But, you were really young, and that's it. And I think they wanted you not to communicate with him anymore, I'm sure. Yeah. And they didn't like that. But I think, I don't know, that's my guess. Yeah. Because I don't think there was other evidence that they should have relied on in support of their verdict.
Yeah, of course, I agree. And I agree with that. It does, it's a lot, it's very questionable. Why are you still talking to this man? And it doesn't, it looks terrible. But all that to say, it's still, doesn't prove premeditated. That was still, afterwards. Not to get too much into the case, but
Yeah, well, the premeditated is they had to prove that you knew that there was going to be this robbery.
Right.
This is under the old law, and there was no evidence of that.
beyond a reasonable doubt.
There wasn't even a scintilla of evidence of that. The evidence was that the shooter wanted to go buy marijuana and needed a ride to the park to buy the marijuana. Because you were his friend, you said, I'll drive you. He didn't have a car, and you drove him. That was the evidence. There was nothing beyond that at all.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's the way it is.
Yeah. And then also, I talked a little bit, about trying to get a deal. But if I remember correctly, that DA was not giving me, a deal unless I, testified and said that I knew like premeditated murder or had a premeditated, mindset going into crime. And I think that played a part too, just because I felt railroaded. I felt like that was kind of an imperfection.
I mean, they were asking you to basically give them false information.
Basically.
To get, which, and people do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're going to make up a lie that you knew that there was going to be a robbery when you didn't, just to get a deal.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yeah. I mean.
So.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't do it. I didn't feel like it was, I didn't feel like it was right. And it felt like that wasn't, just because it's lying.
Absolutely.
It's like a sellout. Like you just for whatever reason. So I just wanted to stand in my truth, and it looks like everything worked out with that. Okay, so enough about trial. Before we shut it let's take a little.
Let's get to our party afterwards.
Let's get to our party. Okay, so before we get to the party, we have to talk about my resentencing.
Okay.
Right? So boom, I go to prison, and then this new law following this new law. We were following it for a while. I was going to the law library, and you were also updating me when I would call you about this new law that was going to pass, which is SB 1437, the new felony murder law. So can you just explain what that law is and the qualifications?
So one of the things, I think our laws are generally fantastic, but we here in California, we make mistakes. An example of it, which didn't apply to you, but it's like the 3 strikes law. So I don't know when this was, 20 years ago or maybe longer, but when the 3 strikes law came about, the majority of California citizens are like, this is great, let's put the criminals away forever, they deserve to be put away forever. And California, they voted in the 3 strikes law. What the voters didn't know, though, is that you could have 2 prior strikes, which are serious felonies, that could have occurred when you were 18, 19 years old. Then you're 57 years old. I don't know why I came up with that number. And you steal a candy bar, and you fall under the 3 strikes law. And you get 25 years to life for stealing a candy bar. And to make a long story short, then California fixed that law, and they said, that's not really fair. The 3rd strike has to be another serious or violent felony.
Right.
So they changed the law. Similarly, they changed the law with felony murder. So in the olden days, if, again, you had no idea what was going on, but one of your cohorts or co-defendants committed one of the enumerated serious or violent felonies, and unbeknownst to anyone, it ends up in a shooting and a killing, everybody goes down for first-degree murder. That's the old law. The new law said, no, that's not fair. And this is SB 1437. The new law says that for you to fall under the felony murder rule, you have to, 1, either intend that your co-defendant do a killing, or you have to aid and abet them to do a killing, you have to solicit them to do a killing, you have to basically want them to do this killing as part of the felony here, supposedly a robbery. You got to want, at the result of this robbery, that your co-defendant actually kill them. Right. Number 1, that, or 2, you have to, in your role in all of this, you have to be what's called a serious or significant participant in the felony, which is the robbery. Right. So you have to, like, hey, here's the gun, go rob this guy. or hey, I'm going to go lure the guy so you can go rob. You got to be a major participant in the robbery. Or 3, you have to act with reckless indifference to human life as it relates to the felony, again, the robbery. And so it's 3 basically obstacles that a prosecution has to prove, one of the 3, for you to fall under the felony murder rule in today's law. You weren't close to any of those. And so under the new law, which was, I remember there was talk about this new law, and there was never a day I forgot about you where you were now in prison. And finally, when they said, yeah, the new law, it's in effect, boom, we filed the motion right away. I called the DA. I said, I don't know if I said we went. I said concede. She didn't concede. We filed motion. She filed an opposition, which in the end had no legal bearing. And to make a long story short, we got you on calendar as quickly as we could. We won the motion. You got resentenced.
Yeah. And so how did I get resentenced? So when you get resentenced, explain a little bit of like the resentencing from 25 to life.
Yeah, so you're no longer liable for the felony murder. And the worst you could be liable for is then the underlying felony at the time was the robbery, which is, again, in my opinion, silly because you didn't even know it was going to happen. So under the new law, you could only be sentenced to 2, 3, or 5 years in prison. You'd already been in prison for the equivalent of the 5-year period, and you got an automatic resentencing and release from prison.
Yeah.
Woo-woo!
That was, so how did you went to trial and it was like the worst of the worst. So how did you feel, when this law came in?
So nothing is ever a guarantee, obviously. So, even the new law, and I'm like, they're going to fight us on the significant participant part, the reckless indifference to human life. It's going to be a battle, and boom, and so then we win, and then and that was it. And it was the greatest legal day of my life, probably yours too.
Yeah.
and that was it. And then I was pissed because we win the resentencing, and it's not like they say, hey, let her out of prison. It takes time for you to get released. And I think it might have been like another month. I don't remember. And it's like, well, that's not fair. They should have just said, hey, Angel, the door's open.
Walk out.
Walk out.
Thanks.
Yeah. And it took a while.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you had to come back to Solano County. Anyhow, the point is it took a while, but it was the greatest legal day of my life for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, I was like in shock.
And it wasn't over. That was great.
Yeah, but it just keeps going.
But then we did even better. Then under SB 731, my number's right?
Yeah.
They changed the law with regard to expungements in California. I think they added a 1203.41 of the Penal Code section. In California, before the SB 731 and the 1203.41, not to bore you with these numbers, but basically in California, if someone was convicted of a crime, felony or misdemeanor, they were granted probation and they did well, they could eventually get relief. The relief was the conviction can get dismissed and expunged off someone's record as if it didn't happen, so it wouldn't be an impediment to that person getting a job or housing or all these things. Well, if you went to prison in the olden days, tough luck, you can never get it expunged or dismissed. They passed the law, and the Penal Code section 1203.41 said you can go to prison on a felony. You can serve 5 years in prison, you can serve whatever, and if you do extraordinarily well in prison, you get out of prison, and you do extraordinarily well, and you show them that you are rehabilitated, law-abiding, productive, or maybe the criminal justice system got it wrong.
Right.
Then you get relief, and you can get your felony dismissed and expunged off your record. And we went back to court, and this law is discretionary, where a judge has to make a finding that, you know what, you deserve it. In the interest of justice, despite everything you went through, and you went through a lot, you have proven that you deserve this expungement and dismissal. Even after being convicted of first-degree murder, going to prison for 5 years, you deserve this. And the judge in Vallejo great judge, great guy, and even the prosecutor, another great guy,
Yeah.
came from Contra Costa County, great guy, longtime prosecutor, agreed you deserved it.
Yeah.
And he didn't oppose it. And the judge said, in the interest of justice, Angel, you deserve it, and dismiss, expunge. You have nothing on your record.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how it is.
Oh, this is gonna make me like tear up. It was like the final chapters,
Yeah.
like just all.
Now we got a lot of
came
chapters.
I know.
We got a lot of good
and
chapters.
And we have more coming. It was
Yeah.
yeah, that was
But yeah, the criminal justice chapters are over.
absolutely
Yeah.
will never happen.
Oh, yeah,
Ever
yeah.
again. Like
Yeah.
oh, the first and last time I would ever be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I worked at the law office, right? You let me work at the law office for a little while.
Yeah, and that was part of why the judge, in the interest of justice, thought you deserve it. Some people serve their time and they don't do anything productive. You're incredibly productive. You get out and you're incredibly productive, and so together and productive that you did work with us,
Yeah.
and which is a no-brainer, easy decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
For me, it was great.
Yeah. But then, these things don't just happen. You have to put in the work. I have to be prepared, to get expunged. Put in the work. I went to school. I did my restitution, got parole early, etc. So, for those watching, be prepared, put in the work so that when these blessings or opportunities come, that you can, that they'll benefit you, because you have to be prepared for your blessings and your luck, whatever you want to call it for the law. So you guys just put in the work. You can do it. If I can do it and I came home, with a felony on my background, you can do it too. So just a little love in life, y'all. Like,
Never
please do not give up on yourself.
You're just gonna say never give up.
Yeah.
Never give up.
You can't.
Because again, the day of the verdict, I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
She's gone for life, and to go from that thought to where you are and have been now, these last years, is like, never give up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's almost like crazy, right? That I was like, I remember when I was working at the venture capital, and then I'm like, wow, I'm with all these CEOs, and like, venture capital is kind of like Shark Tank, and it was just amazing. It's like, wow, with like people that were lifers, or like Pearl Fernandez, if you've seen the Gabriel Fernandez story on Netflix, and then it's just like such a crazy life. That's like complete opposite, and that goes a lot into why, as I've matured, you can't judge a book by its cover. And you could really learn from everybody. I've learned from people incarcerated. They're actually the most creative people I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot of lessons from them, as well as all the CEOs and entrepreneurs, lawyers, and et cetera out here. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a question. Were you know me? Were you ever
Scared of you? Oh.
No. Scared I'll drink you under the table? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Were you ever scared or just like worried, like, oh my God, Angel's gonna be in prison? Like, how should
Yeah.
you survive? Like, cause
Yeah.
not survive, but like, did you ever have any fears about me?
Absolutely. You were 19.
Yeah. I know. You met when I was 19, and I'm 21 now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm 36.
36, right? 21 and 36.
I keep going down every time.
Exactly.
You'll be 35 in a couple minutes.
In a couple of minutes.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You grew up in a super solid, loving family. You were the first one on your dad's side to go to college. You leave the nest, you go down south, you're a scholar athlete, and the next thing you know, you're gonna have to figure out how to survive in prison for the rest of your life. So absolutely, I was worried. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
you're the
glad.
same age as my kids. I'd be the same as my kids.
I know, and I love your kids, and I can't imagine them like going through something like that. And it was a lot, but yeah, you just have to adapt, I guess. I might even, honestly, I might have just dissociated from everything.
Yeah.
Honestly,
My daughter's introduction to you wasn't the best introduction, though.
How did she meet me? I don't remember.
She came to court. And then there was a brawl in the hallway that was started by the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Your poor daughter.
She's like,
oh my God.
She's like, this is what happens every day at work for you?
Right, this is your life. This is what you, like, yeah, I think I'll just go to the office or something and just chill.
I remember afterwards, though, she was commenting on you, my daughter on you, and saying, oh my God, she's so young and innocent. And she's facing what? She's facing murder? Yeah. Anyhow, my daughter was 13 at the time, so didn't quite understand everything. Now she does.
Yeah.
And now she loves you.
I know, and I love them the most. Yeah, they're the best.
Family.
Yeah, really, truly. My family adores you. You know, we had a party there. We just all, you know, just love and appreciate you just for everything.
I wish we're not doing this in my office. They don't really have an office anymore.
Oh, yeah.
No, I do. But if we were doing this in my office, what we would see is all these great photos of you, me, and Candy, and then a poster that your family gave to me, all signed, you know. Yeah. But it's a shrine to Angel. That's my office.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
But that made you, I hope that made you feel like really good too.
Oh, it still does.
I mean, you're the star.
I still have an office, so I see it once a week. I just don't go there every day, but I still see it every time I go there.
I know.
It will never come down.
So special, yeah. Oh, Kellin.
Yeah. A journey.
It has. It's definitely been a journey.
I won't say it's been a great journey in all the suffering that, frankly, mostly you endured and me on a different level as the lawyer. But I am super thankful for a lot of things that California legislature changed the law to be fair and to be just and to correct a wrong. And so they've done that for you. And then because of that, thankful that now our friendship isn't behind bars. Yeah. And it's here.
Yeah, and it's going to stay here.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, with that being said, Kellin, do you have just, you know, any other words for, you know, those watching or any advice or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the words are when we are as lucky and fortunate and happy to have this new lease on life, it calls for a tequila shot probably.
It does.
Here's to new chances, to a beautiful friendship that started in an awkward way as an attorney-client, but you are my dear, dear friend. I love you so much, and I'm so happy, and you deserve everything that you have right now.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, y'all, I really hope that you guys all enjoyed this this video. Thank you again, Kellin.
Pleasure.
You're the best
Pleasure.
ever. If anybody hopefully not, have any legal issues, hit up Kellin. You know, he's not just an attorney, but he cares for the people, you know, and that says a lot. So with that said, stay tuned for the next video. Bye.
Bye-bye.